Hello, I'm Blaze, and welcome back to Warframe. Not too long ago, Red Text dropped the news of the Soma getting secondary and melee variants. I thought it was a joke at first, but it transpired that, no, they do in fact exist, and salt levels reached critical for a day or so afterwards. But was that salt really necessary? Let's find out by first looking at the Dual Raza. The Dual Razas are advertised as twin hatchets, and the blueprint can be picked up from your local Tenno lab for 15,000 credits, with the build requirements being 20,000 credits, one fully made dual comma, 200 cryotic, 200 alloy plates, and 1 orokin cell with a mastery rank requirement of 6. The dual commas also require 5 neural sensors for each of the single commas, another orokin cell to combine them, and a total of 215,000 credits for the entire process. Yeah, I'm sensing a pattern with these new multi-step weapons. Alternatively, if you'd rather shortcut that and just get your hands on these right now, you can pick them up with a pre-installed catalyst and its own weapon slot for 175 platinum. Steep costs aside, what you actually get at the end is a decent set of crit-based melee weapons that use dual sword stances. The base physical damage sits at 48, with a spread of 28.8 slash damage, 14.4 puncture damage, and a largely negligible 4.8 impact damage. Its attack rate sits at 0.917, which is the low end of the average attack rate for dual swords, but isn't anything I find hard to deal with. Its status chance is really weak for melee weapons, sitting at only 5%, but it does have an above average critical chance at 20% and a 3 times critical damage multiplier. I would sound a bit more excited about the damage multiplier if we were talking about any other weapons, but melee weapons kinda have their own set of standards, and a 3 times multiplier is not especially noteworthy in the land of the blade, though it is indeed the highest currently available critical multiplier on melee weapons. Unfortunately, it does not come with any polarities in its mod slots by default, and its stance polarity is a dash, which matches crossing snakes. While it's modelled after the Soma, which is sort of the famed critical hit gun, its melee iteration is surprisingly tame. Most critical melee weapons have a chance of 25%, while the Dual Raza sits below that at 20%. But it does instead have a higher base damage at 48, compared to the 35 damage on either the dual cleavers or dual icores, or the 30 damage on the dual Zoran. The Dual Raza also takes the middle of the road with its reported attack rate. Strictly speaking, it might be somewhat superior per hit to the dual cleavers because the increase to its base damage is pretty substantial and it attacks faster. But it should be remembered that the dual cleavers have the Justice Blades augment now, which bumps up its effectiveness considerably. So taking that into account, the Dual Raza's stats seem surprisingly on par with its other critical hit counterparts. For the most part at least. If you use Valkyr and want the most out of her hysteria, the dual cleavers will win because it both has a higher critical chance and with the augment it has a higher base damage. For more general use however, it will be down to what you prefer. For mods, the standard crit mods apply. I only needed to use one forma on these to change the aura polarity to a scratch instead. I personally feel that the Crossing Snake stance is terra bad, while Swirling Tiger actually has a lot of nice moves, so I personally feel that the change is mandatory. I add on Spoiled Strike to pretty much everything I use, because I usually don't mind the attack rate decrease, but if you would rather use another element instead, then you will need an extra forma to bring the cost of something down. I would recommend a dash polarity for one of the elements to get the most out of it. Okay, so its stats and use are a pleasant surprise. I thought the Dual Razas would be a major case of power creep, but they're actually a decent matchup for the other stuff already here, so you can just go with whatever you happen to prefer. A base toxin damage and faster attack rate with the dual icores, slower and more powerful strikes with the dual cleavers, or a middle ground on power and attack rate at the cost of some critical chance with the Dual Razas. What I do have complaints with are how they look fucking retarded. Now, if they just stayed folded up like this the whole time, then okay, the axe blades are a bit short, but hey, they look functional. Then when you attack with them, they do some weird fold-out thing and reveal that their business ends look like this. Now, I understand that this is a video game, and it's fantasy, and things don't necessarily have to follow logic or reason. I know that in this very same game, we basically have magical powers, but the obvious fantasy doesn't bother me because, really, there's no relation to the real world there. But what does bother me is when the mundane is gotten wrong. Things that do have an analogue in real life, or things which defy sense even in the media they are presented. When I see something used in a certain way, I expect them to look somewhat fit for purpose. These aren't. They have these big stupid pointless pointy bits along the undersides of the blade which, if you angle your camera, is actually twin-pronged. There is no purpose to this. This doesn't do more damage, this doesn't make them look cool or intimidating. They are just going to get caught up in the armor or clothing of whatever you hit with them, and either go in, do their damage, and then get stuck, or go in, get caught on the armor, and do no substantial damage because the completely superfluous spikes got caught up on the armor, or even clothing on the way in, and still get stuck. Historically, even normal swords have gotten stuck in people after they fall over and trap the blade, let alone when there's all this shit on there. Grumble, grumble. The Dual Razas are certainly not the only weapons in the game to have an odd visual design philosophy to them, to be fair, but I'll get to the other stuff in time. Okay, my weapon design rant is out of the way. If you either are not bothered by or don't notice their construction, or you actually like how they look, and you are okay with the crafting requirements, then these are a perfectly viable option in your arsenal along with the other crit-based blades. As for me, however, I have an appointment with a refuse destruction facility to attend. Thank you for watching my look at the Dual Razas. All comments are appreciated, and I hope to see you around next time. For more content, you can give a click down below to watch my look at Chroma, or another melee weapon with the replicas. And as always, good luck, have fun, and take care. I'm not looking forward to what's coming next.